I don't need it. Okay. So let's get started with a little recap, maybe. What have we done so far? So the first thing, maybe if you have missed the first part, right, then there's always this question of what is this? What am I looking at? And I actually, I wondered about this a little bit when you just jump in somewhere. Is it possible to follow something like just in the middle? And I think that is a little bit hard in the first place. But let's basically see what we did here so far, right? So we created a simple assets folder. That's where we will place, stuff that we don't really categorize as anything else, but well, maybe imagery and stuff like that. Then we have our MVC, right? So model views and controllers that we created as clean as possible. And then we basically have our index with a super primitive router. It's something that we might spend some more love with, but for now that's cool. And basically what we are going to do is to kind of like dive into the models right now. So what I do want to do though is to say, let's basically get some availability here. So what I'm going to do is to actually share import into version control, share project in GitHub. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. I'm just going to call it like this. Let's see if I can actually set a description. MVC PHP, let's call it boilerplate, right? And let's share that. Okay, so my git ignore is in the idea. That is interesting. Is there anything? Yeah, I want to actually what I don't want to add the vendor folder, and the rest is kind of okay to do. So let's do that one. Then let's actually add. So we're directly pushing this. Okay, that's fine. What we want to do, there are actually a couple of things that we want to do, but for now, we want to start with a git ignore. Git ignore, and the git ignore itself I want to add, and then basically say vendor. So the vendor I don't want to share, right? So let's commit that quickly. Add git ignore. Okay. Make this pretty simple, and then we're basically ready to share it, right? So let's quickly go to GitHub. Let me get that over here for you. So you see that, and basically I should have this right here called the PHP basics. That's fine for now, I guess. So the only thing that I'm going to do is I'm basically going to take this and basically post it in my chat for now. Yeah, that's That's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. Hello? Okay, I don't know what's happening here, but I actually cannot really click on this chat. Why not? Okay, I'm not sure what happened here, but that kind of crashed. That's okay. I'm going to put it in the streaming info. Why doesn't this work? Probably have to restart this. Hold on a second. So, if you see it here, I literally cannot click on my own chat. Okay, I'm going to close this. I can't even close this either. Wonderful. Let's see. Let's see what we can do about this. Okay. Okay. All right. That should be basically it. So we will need a README, of course. Let's create that too. File is a README markdown. And I do want to do that. So right now this is all a master. This is not how I actually want to show you how to work, but that'll do for now, I guess. So let's quickly have some kind of like MVC boilerplate. Frameless framework. This framework is what we kind of call it. Yeah, that makes sense or not, but that should work fine. I'm gonna say basic structure. Basic structure. Just okay. Gonna do this. Seen on Twitch. Right, a little bit of a TV thing here. So let's say Twitch, and then make some commercial here. And then YouTube. I don't even know what my YouTube channel is. Let me quickly check that out. And let me see. Is this really it? Yeah. Okay, weird channel, but sure. Let's do that. Maybe that. Okay. That should be it. And yeah, let's also directly commit that quickly. Add basic readme. commit. Okay, fair enough. Actually, let's even push that quickly so you guys have it. Okay, so let's start. So where have we left off? We basically said, hey, how do models look like, right? And right now, basically what we don't have yet is a couple of things to kind of force ourselves to work clean. So let's talk about our general approach first with the models, right? So here's what I imagine, and maybe I'm gonna write this down here. I would like to basically do something like, hey, let's write new post, and then here I basically say whatever I require, right? And this already generates it. And I don't really know, some title. Content, some content, right, just to keep this super simple. And I want this basically to generate a new post automatically. And then I probably want for the actual read functionality, I want to use it statically and basically do something like post get, and then here my condition, or let's say find, right? And that should be true for all models basically. So that's what I kind of imagine. And I think, where did we use post? In about? No, in home. We did. This get post, and this basically created. Okay, so here we did differently. So let's maybe change this and try this out. Okay, so if we say, hey, this is actually a model find functionality, and this is going to be static, right? And here we're going to have a public post ID, let's do it like this, and then we're going to have a function. We're playing around here, right? So I'm not sure if that's how we're going to actually do it, but let's say. So here is basically going to be my insert, and there's going to be my find, and that's basically how I want to do it. And then I don't need a get, right? And this, of course, will never exist, right? And I think that's how I want to write it. That's probably how I want to write it. So now let's talk about databases quickly. So I'm going to use a database for that. That is part of the Neon 3 apps. So I'm going to do my composer require Neon 3 apps db. Come on. Hello, there we go. And you can see my auto load has been updated and so on, so all of that works fine. And then the next thing I need to do is to basically say, okay, two things. I need some form of database credentials, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a .env file, okay? And I do not want to add that. I actually, as a matter of fact, what I do want to do is to say .env, part of my git ignore. And I'm gonna now basically start to say, hey, this will be database support. Okay. Hold on, I just have a message here that I want to check if that's something I need to jump on. Okay, no, that's all good. That's all good, that can wait. Okay, so git ignore, yeah, the .env. And what I also want to do is to create a example.env file. And that one I do want to add. So why is that, right? So when you collaborate, this is basically something that will define how things are used. So we can basically have some kind of environment variables that are kind of like secured. And what we do want to do at this point is to basically make sure. So I'm running an Apache. I don't know about you. So I'm also going to create a .htaccess file here, and that one will kind of like secure this .env file. And if I use Apache at least, yes, I do want to do this. So an Htaccess file is basically kind of like the shortcut. It makes more sense to do this on the server side, or do that with I don't know if you. I mean, I'm not going to go into Docker and all that kind of stuff, but the idea is that the Htaccess can protect particular things, right? And that's basically what I want to do. So if I, for example, would have to have something like super secret, right? And then I say my key, right? Then what would happen is if I go to a browser, wherever that browser may be, okay, let's open a new one and say, okay, localhost PHP basics. Oh, right, yes, doesn't matter at this point. And say .env. Then you can see my browser would simply display it, which is, of course, not what we want. So what we want instead is to basically say, hey, no, those files are protected from the Htaccess, right? So that's why I need the Htaccess depending on how I run this. And I also need some logic to basically retrieve this. So let's start on a higher level though. So we have installed the database. So what we can do now is to basically say, okay, how would I basically go about not allowing what's it called? This end file to be read. So I would open up my where's it even going? Here, my Htaccess file, and basically say, hey, let's define this quickly, and say, okay, files, and then .env, right? So now I have a match here, and then I say order is allow deny, and then I say deny from all, right? And this should probably already do the trick. So let's check that out in the browser again. Forbidden, right? And since we will do some more with this Htaccess file, but not right now, but when it comes to the router, when we basically get that up and running a little bit smoother. So what we want to do for now is to say, okay, why did I even create this? Well, I created this to basically use my database variables. So in my index PHP, what I basically want to do is I need some kind of setup. And that setup is basically something that I can basically do right here, right? So this will be my I don't know why that didn't work the way I wanted it to. Okay, setup. So here I will basically have my Neon 3 apps DB, and I'm going to say set environment. And what I want to place in here is basically the following. I want to place in here my host, right, and my name, that's the database name, and my my user. I hope that's called user. I think so. And hold on. Oh, I actually need to answer this call quickly. I have to quickly put you guys out. I'll be right back. Be right back.
Servus.
Servus. Hey. Hey.
Servus, ja. Stefan, der Fidi muss direkt weiter. Das heißt, ich rufe dich gleich nochmal an.
Ich ehrlich gesagt, ich bin nur ganz kurz. Ich habe gerade irgendwie mein Meeting hier auf Mute geschaltet, um mal kurz Hallo zu sagen. Hast du?
Hi,
Ja. Hi, Ferdinand. Hi. Geiler Typ. Geiler Typ.
der checkt noch nicht so viel.
Der checkt noch nicht so viel.
Wer ist denn?
Ja, wenigstens nicht so hässlich wie der Papa.
Also, bis später, Stefan.
Bis später.
Bis später.
Okay, sorry about that. The host name, user, and what else do we need? Of course, the password. Now the question is, I don't want this to be filled in here, right? This is something that basically only applies to my particular setup. So I'm basically going to say, okay, I'm going to write this stuff in here. Now, in order to conveniently read this, there's basically a .env that I keep forgetting what the php.env. Yeah, from this guy. Okay. Let's remember from env to get env. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. And this is what we want to execute, right? So let's do that quickly and say, all right, my friend. So while this is loading, let's quickly look at what this is doing. So what you do is you kind of initialize that, which upgrading usage here. Nope. Here. This is basically what we're doing, right? Create a mutable, and then you say load, and from that moment on, you can basically just use the get env, so it puts it into your environment variables, and you're good to go. So I actually only need this, because I'm going to place that directly in my index whenever I find it, right? So the first thing of my setup is to basically say, okay, let's basically create this, and then the set environment, which of course wants to be in a try catch block, right? Okay, and that has a db exception, in that case I'm going to say, I'm just going to say die, and say database issue. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that here we can basically now say, okay, this is get env, and then here we can say db host, right? And kind of the same here, so I'm going to basically just say put that here, and put that here, with the exception, of course, of this being name, and this being user, and this being password. Okay, now let's basically see and how that would look like. So I have my db host, that would be localhost. I have my db user, that would be root. I have my db password, that would be, in my case, Nachtschatten. And I have my db, oh no, this is not, didn't I set that to empty? I actually don't remember. Host and name. And that is a good question because we don't have one yet. So I'm going to call this PHP_basics. Okay, which basically means I'm quickly going to create this database. I don't even need that. Okay. Create database, PHP basics. Okay. Fair enough. And actually, also, thank you, MySQL. Okay, so that's basically the setup I'm having here, and that should be fine. So let's try it out that far, right? So this should all exist. So, and it's loading in my index. So I'm creating basically my, this is on the same directory, so that's all fine. So what I probably want to do is kind of put this over here into my example. Kind of like leave it like this, right? So people can kind of look at it and see how this is supposed to look like, and then easily just rename it and integrate it. Okay, so basically what we're kind of wondering is, hey, if you, but we forgot that the home does this, which we don't have yet. So let me quickly finish this idea here. So this is defined, right? So the only thing we really want here is to return posts find. Okay, let's try it out. Okay, so that seems to work. The die didn't kick in, so the setup seems to basically work, which we actually cannot really know. So for conveniences, I'm kind of like going to integrate this right now, right here in my PHP Storm, and say, okay, so host is localhost, then root, password is in that case none, and database is in that case PHP basics. Let's see if that's correct. This is such a stupid bug in the newest version. I need to find out how that works. It actually bothers me so much that I might want to Google it right now. Server returns invalid time zone. Okay, that's an installation issue I have. That's, you probably don't have that, so don't worry about that. Quickly, server time zone. Quickly fix that. Yeah. Okay, so that's snatchy. That sucks. Okay, so that works now. But actually, 2020. Database connection. Okay. No, this is so not what I want. Knowing to password prompts. Yeah, actually, I mean, maybe this is an older thing. No. What is this? No. There must be. It's definitely something I need to figure out. See, because now I get prompted this every time, and it super sucks. But okay, so far so good. So what do I want to do here? I don't want to have the collations or the schemas. No, the schemas I want. I don't want to have the users. I don't want. Okay. Fair enough. So that's empty now. Let's actually create this post here quickly, right? So we have whatever post is. So I'm quickly going to create a table. The table name is post, and it will have an ID, and that is going to be my primary key, and it will auto increment. And then I'm going to have my title, which is a varchar of, I don't know, 200 is the max, and also a not null field. And then I have a, what did I call this? Content, and that will basically be text. And then I have an insert date, and that's going to be a timestamp with the current timestamp as a default. And then I will have a delete date. Okay, not where I wanted to put that. Delete date, and that's also a datetime, and that defaults to null. So this is basically how it would look like, right, when I execute it. Look at that here quickly. So I create table post, and ID, title, content, insert date, delete date, and then the primary key. So that's all it is. Let's kick it on. And yep, still true that I don't have a password. Still true. Ugh. Yeah, super annoying. Need to fix that. Okay. Let me quickly actually see if there's any kind of updates on the chat. No, not as of now. So we now basically have our posts. So what we could do potentially, right, in our post model is to say, okay, so my insert can now basically work. So let's try that out. So I'm going to say, okay, database, okay, that guy, database, and then the environment should already be set. So the only thing I'm going to do here is to say ask. And so the way that the ask works is basically you can use that in multiple ways. But what I'm going to do here is to basically say, hey, the first parameter is going to be the table, that's post. And then I simply basically say, hey, and I don't even, because this is secure, and then I basically say, what am I going to say? Are we going to, yeah, we're always going to pass that in because, yeah, because later on we're going to account for an API. So yeah, okay, let's do it like this. And here are going to be my basically key values, right? Let's do it like this for now. And in our case, we want to have this post ID equals. So this will also return the last insert ID in this case. And then it basically, now I should basically have it, right? So of course I need to kind of, wow, where do I want to try it in this case? You know what? It's going to throw an exception. It's going to throw an exception. And here in my find, I'm basically doing kind of like the reverse. So I'm going to say, okay, return db, in that case easy, and I'm going to say post post everything where condition. Okay, and that should already be it. Let's try that out on a very high level if that kind of works. So I am now basically retrieving posts, which will not do anything, right? Will not do anything for me. So if I go into the browser, what I basically will see is, check defines, could not connect. Aha. Wonderful. Well, one of the reasons is that this password is wrong. There we go. And of course I don't get anything. That is fine. That is absolutely fine. So there are two things that I should probably notice, right? So this cannot actually iterate over everything because there's no such thing as post title, right? So what we need to account for in our views in our home is when we iterate over this in this v4, I'm going to also make a v-if and say count posts bigger 0. Does this work like that? I actually don't really know. Let's try this out. Yeah, no, that doesn't work, right? Because you don't know, you can't do that. Can't do that in that version. What do you have to do though? If I'm gonna simply say if post title, right? Because we're already in here. Let's see if that works. Nope. So this goes through here. Do really need to make the if outside of it. Okay, let's see if I can trick it. I cannot. Okay, no problem. No problem, we'll figure this problem out when the time comes. Worst case scenario, I have to surround it with an if. That's fine, I guess. Okay, So new posts, and then so the point that we have is we want to basically have a create new post that we want to potentially look into. Right, let me quickly see that. What's going on here? Oh. Oh. Wrong button. Apologize. So what we want to figure out is basically, so now we have posts that are listed. That's all fine and dandy, but we somehow want to basically create a new post. So let's just assume, because we're not going to worry about login as of yet, let's just assume that we can create a new controller, right, that we now call. So let's make this a class, and you can see the namespace is filled out already, and that is we're gonna call this maybe just simply gonna call this post. We're simply gonna call this post. We are. Now here's the kind of the problem that I have. So first of all, we need to kind of like be careful with our branches here. But so the idea is to basically say, hey, so for now, if you visit this, I kind of want to kind of like fake this whole thing right now. And I'm going to say ask, sorry, I'm using my model, of course, and that would be posts. Not even that. We decided to do it like this. New posts, and then I'm going to say title equals test post, and content equals some text. Okay, so this is, I just really want to quickly just test this out, so this I can get rid of, just to see whether that works. So what will happen now is we have not basically defined the necessity for this, right? We have no abstract class, nothing that would basically make us aware that we potentially could forget this. So right now I'm simply doing it manually, but later we will basically tackle that as well. So if I now visit post, I get a now found, which is interesting. Did we make any kind of changes to how the controller works? Let's revert all of this and see what's going on here. So why sure. It's my auto load. It's not even my auto load. It's because that's not how it works. We're far from being there. It works like this, right? We say index.php route post. Yeah. Okay. So what you can now see from the database is just by visiting this endpoint, I should have created, do you see that? My test post, right? So if I go back to basically this, then I can see, okay, now I have the test post in here. So that's of course nothing that I actually want to do, but nonetheless, before we go into the front end and see how that works, I wanted to kind of show you, like, okay, this is basically how we would write something like this, and that is basically how we're going to go about it. So that's our insert. Let's get rid of that so we don't accidentally do that again. So then we have our last post ID. Could have showed you that as well, but that's fine for now. So now I can iterate over my post. So I basically want to have now my first plan of, okay, what's going to happen. right? So now I could potentially like create all of this, but we have a couple of things that we want to take care of. So one would be the router, one would be the a front-end solution that would enable us to work nicely with this. And that is basically where we are today. So let me actually kind of conclude this in CU. Okay, so we're going to do the git ignore, the htaccess, okay. So here's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to add. What changes did we make here? Let's quickly see. Okay, we fixed the model. Okay, so let's do this for now. Let's say, okay, let's commit that one. Okay. And then changes to updated model structure and demo integration of transaction. Okay, so let's that get going for us right now, and then we're basically in the point of where we can talk about like, for example, like do we really want to call this posts, right? Is that really something that we want to do, or should those be singular, which probably would make more sense for a model. But those are all the things that we will talk about when we go forward. So what we have right now is basically the necessity to kind of wonder, well, should the setup be here? Is this something that we really want to do? And if so, is this routing solution still okay? You know, all those kind of things. So the only thing that I'm going to do right now is basically leave you to it so you can explore it a little bit. So I'm going to push this up. And then basically you have something to play around with and see, you know, where you are in the process. And there's maybe one more thing that I actually quickly want to do is, so this is probably something I want to take out. And that is something that I'm kind of wondering now if nobody's here, but this should basically be not here, right? This should be not here. And where are we including the base? In here, and then we here say index. Okay. I don't think we need that in our case, do we? Until we have the router issue here. Should not be an issue, right? Yeah, no, this works fine. Yeah, we don't need this. We don't need this either. And that means we don't need this either. Simplify it down so much. Get rid of this and put that right up there. And let's do it. Oops. Yeah, that I know. All of that I know. Okay. All of that I know. Okay. So far, so good. Now let's quickly do the following and say, hey, where was our GitHub project again? What did we call it? PHP, yeah, that guy. Okay, so that all runs fine. So let's basically say database support and model changes. Still don't know how to write support and model changes. Structure changes. So this is all, I mean, I would of course normally not do this, but I mean, this is a work in progress, and we basically want to work off all the same base. So if you are following along in the next one, then I want to make sure that you're actually working off of what I'm working off, because we are going to throw this around a couple of times until we have something that makes sense. Okay, so far so good. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess I'll keep you in the loop either this afternoon or maybe even no, probably not, probably tomorrow. We'll see. You guys